I'll be gone in a day or two. So needless to say, of odds and ends, but I will be stumbling away, slowly learning that life is okay. Say after me, it's no better to be safe than sorry. Take on me.
Half in the bag.
Okay, Mr. Plinkett, we'll be there right away. Hey, Mike, we gotta get over to Mr. Plinkett so we can fix his VCR.
Jay. We're not having a story this time because the movie we just saw didn't have one either. Hey everyone, it's Slender Man, the new film based on something someone made up on the internet. 4 high school girls summoned the Slender Man to do something. They summoned him by watching a video on the internet from a message board, from the dark web. Woo! It's the dark web because everything is dark and colored black. It's the dark web! That's where you find Slender Man! In my opinion, stick to creepypasta. And yes, I am talking about Olive Garden. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.
Boy, Mike, we should look into getting the air conditioning fixed here. I'm sweating more than the producers of Slender Man when they saw this weekend's box office results.
Wait, there were results?
Well, we saw Slender Man. We didn't see Mission Impossible Free Fall or whatever it's called. We didn't see the Meg.
Ant-Man versus the Wasp.
We didn't see Ant-Man versus the Wasp.
Whatever.
Is that the new title of it?
I don't know. We didn't see Deadpool 2.
No, but we saw Slender Man. Well, we should talk about, because there's not a lot to talk about with the actual movie. We'll give our opinions on the movie, but there's a whole backstory behind why we chose to see this film and the troubles we had seeing the film.
That's right, Jay. Well, you all know about our history with Slender Man. We recently made a video called Did Brother Media Invent Slender Man?
Spoilers, we didn't.
We do not want to take credit for the Slender Man phenomenon.
We definitely don't want to take any credit for this movie.
No, or what happened in real life.
Yes.
Which is the Wisconsin connection to Slender Man, as became a worldwide news.
Hearing this week, for the first time from two girls, their own voices, about the night they allegedly lured their friend into the woods and repeatedly stabbed her. Police say, leaving her to die.
Last May, they lured her to a wooded area where police say they stabbed her 19 times. When investigators asked why they did it, they both had the same answer: Slender Man.
Two 12-year-old girls in Waukesha.
Which is just outside of Milwaukee here.
Yes.
And this is all documented in the HBO documentary, Beware the Slender Man, right?
I think that's what's called.
Yeah.
Yeah. The two girls named Morgan Geyser and Anissa Weir. I actually remember their names because it's on the news so much.
Sure.
Stabbed their friend 19 times. Who miraculously survived.
Luckily, she lived. I think things would be different with the release of this movie.
Yes.
I don't even know if this movie would have happened if she'd actually died.
I think the one, and coincidentally, the lead girl in this movie kind of looks like Morgan Geyser.
Oh, yeah.
The girl from another great horror film, Wish Upon.
Yes.
I forget her name.
She was in The Conjuring when she was like 10 years old, and now, we'll just put her in these crappy horror movies.
She's working.
She's working.
Making that money. She kind of looks like Morgan Geyser, who I believe was the ringleader.
Yes.
She was the kind of crazy one.
She's the one, if you see the documentary and they show like them interrogating her, and she's just like completely emotionally distant from everything.
The other one seemed more like a follower.
Yeah.
And then the Morgan one was not the one who did the stabbing. She convinced the other one. I don't know, a Charles Manson-y situation. But anyways, that's what happened, and Hollywood wisely chose to make a movie about the Slender Man phenomenon.
Not based on that story, just obviously Slender Man's been around for a long time now. They're probably 5, 6, 10 years too late on making a Slender Man movie. It's like the Angry Birds movie. That shit was popular a decade ago. What are you doing making this now? But the backstory is that they made the movie, and then the studio started to get cold feet because I think it was the father of either the girl that was stabbed or one of the girls involved with that incident was saying, hey, this is incredibly tasteless. To make a movie exploiting or sensationalizing this real tragic event, even though the movie isn't about that actual event.
Slender Man is a film about a fictional horror character, but it is not being shown in the Milwaukee area where that character inspired a notorious real-life crime.
They're probably better in not showing it because they would just have empty theaters.
That's very true.
I mean, it's not like they're skipping out on Star Wars or something.
Well, that's the other thing is like leading up to the release of this movie, there's been hardly no publicity for it.
Right. It's respectable. They're not taking a financial hit. It's a win-win for them, is what I'm trying to say. It's a win-win for the theater chains, mainly Marcus Theaters, which owns a lot of the theaters in Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. They're not taking a financial hit, and they don't look like dirtbags for playing this movie. I think they kind of like said, okay, here's where it happened in Waukesha. Let's circle a 30-mile radius.
Yeah. How about we don't play in these theaters?
Because it is playing at a lot of Marcus Theaters, but one's way up north.
Yeah.
Or way out west, but not in the general vicinity of where this happened.
Right.
So it's like, they save face by not doing that, but they're not missing out on those 11 ticket sales.
Well, we drove down to Kenosha, Wisconsin to see this film. That was the closest theater playing it. So we actually had to go out of our way to see it. We put in more effort to see this movie than to see movies that we are actually interested in seeing. But the other thing to note is that the studio started to get cold feet about the violence in the film. One, they wanted it to be PG-13 so kids could go see it. But also they thought it might...
Because you want kids to see this.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Am I
right? And also they were concerned about it being disrespectful or exploitative of real life violence that happened in association with Slender Man. So they ripped all that shit out. Half the stuff in the trailer is not in the movie.
The boyfriend character disappeared?
The boyfriend character
Did
disappears.
they show his death in the trailer?
Yes, he's like falling off a bridge or something. And just cut that out of the movie. Let's make a horror film and then cut out all the horror. And then just release a partial film into theaters and not advertise it. It's like, why even bother? If you're gonna hack the movie apart and then not advertise it, don't even release the fucking thing.
Well, there was a different story before the movie came out, how the producers of the film, they looked at their contract and it said they could bid to other distributors, like, oh, maybe this should go on Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah, hey Sony, we're gonna go like see if Amazon wants to buy this, or Netflix, you know. And so it was.
And Netflix said, this is too bad even for us.
And we made Bright.
And we released Mute.
And we released Cloverfield Paradox.
And we released Tau.
And Amazon will release anything. So it was a game of Slender Man Hot Potato.
Yeah, and nobody wanted it, so they're stuck with Sony.
The music stopped when Sony caught the hot potato. And then they said, yeah, we're not spending a dime on TV ads. We'll make a trailer and put it on YouTube.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's all. And
Well, the scariest thing in the movie was the Sony logo at the beginning.
Sony's logo looks too nice. You associate it with like quality, like electronics products.
I suppose.
It needs to look more like the Mill Creek logo.
Hey, there you go.
It's a piece of garbage logo. that looks like.
Slender Man should have been released directly to a 50-movie DVD pack.
Yes, the Mill Creek logo looks like wingdings. The Mill Creek logo looks like Microsoft clip art. Sony needs to up their logo. And by up, I mean make a terrible one for the quality of their pictures. It's deceptive, really, it is. Oh, Sony, that's a big company. That's a big Japanese company. They make all sorts of electronics.
I got my stereo from
Yeah,
Sony.
Sony.
So we have a half movie dumped into theaters that nobody saw. Here's when we went to buy our tickets. Here's what the theater looked like.
Yep.
It's all one color, and that color means nobody's in there.
And then when we finally got in there, I think there were 3 other people.
One of them was an elderly woman that I think just goes to every showing because she has nothing to do with her final days.
She thought it was a workout video. You know, we noticed the terrible Rotten Tomatoes score. We noticed the terrible ratings.
We noticed it's the lead girl from Wish Upon, so we were hoping, we got to give up on this dream that we'll ever see another hilarious mid-budget horror film. We tried with Truth or Dare.
Yes.
We tried with this.
Yes.
Nothing will top Wish Upon, and maybe The Bye-Bye Man.
The Bye-Bye Man was bad, but nothing contemporary like Wish Upon. Wish Upon is a masterpiece of comedy. I urge you all to check it out. Let's get that trending on Amazon again, because that's a great film. But yeah, it starred the same girl from that, so you're like, ooh. You know, it's like when you see a Cameron Mitchell film.
Yeah.
Oh, it's got Cameron Mitchell in it? We're guaranteed low production quality.
Yeah.
At least
Oh, it's got this girl?
Yeah, so that's the backstory. There's the Wisconsin connection, and then when they showed the map of like missing children, I saw Wisconsin, and I looked at it real close.
Oh,
it was only
did
for a
they?
second, but there was nothing. It was like I think closer to Madison, maybe. There wasn't a pin in Waukesha. I was looking for a little like
A little Easter egg
like
or something?
Easter egg, yeah, where they referenced it. You know?
I don't blame them for not at all. Although they do kind of mention there's like a little monologue by the main female's little sister at the end, where it's supposed to be like, I guess it's supposed to be like to leave you trembling when you leave the theater. Like Slender Man can show up anywhere, and he is. It's sometimes it's not even what he does that's horrifying. It's what he causes other people to do.
Yeah.
I was like, this is pretty fucking sickening.
Yeah.
Like Jesus Christ.
Well, that brings up an interesting point. I mean, it was a fine move for Marcus, and I think other theater companies like AMC decided not to play it in the radius.
Yeah.
Because what happened, you know, awful. Those little girls got delusional or crazy or tricked into trying to murder their friend. terrible, terrible story, but you know, it was a real life event, and it's kind of weird because Slender Man's a fictional internet character, so then you have that where it's like younger people are influenced by it, and so you don't want to like it said in the movie, start this kind of infection where it's like, oh, I'm thinking a movie's real. When we were little, we watched Nightmare on Elm Street, you know, and stuff like that. Jason. But you know it's not real. This is kind of bordering on reality because
there is that real horror story connected to it.
Where young kids read, it's like an urban legend almost, where they read it on the internet and they think it could be real, but they're not sure. So they're impressionable.
Yeah.
But then, you know, like, but it's like, what is the off limits for making a movie about something? You make movies about Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Lots of people died in the Vietnam War, were affected by it. 9/11, you know, stuff like that. There's movies made about all sorts of. There's a Charles Manson movie coming out.
Oh, sure.
Quentin Tarantino. So, like, are they not going to play that in California?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's an ethical debate. But it wasn't a movie about Morgan Geyser and Anissa Weir. It wasn't a true life story. That would have been more interesting. To segue into the film.
Yeah. Well, if they made like a dramatic film that did it tastefully, but this is just like a cheapo.
Oh yeah.
Movie that they're trying to make a quick buck on.
Yes, they're trying to
from a known.
I think that's
property.
I think that's the real the real angle here is that a war movie has like a message, you know, born on the 4th of July or something. You're not glorifying Vietnam.
Right.
You're telling a story and you're trying to have an emotional impact. They are basically like con artists. What's popular? Let's grab this. Let's make a buck and move out of town.
Yeah.
So, and I think people see through that.
It's funny because we looked up the screenwriter after the fact because this movie is all teenagers and the dialogue is fucking terrible. And so we looked up the screenwriter and the guy who was writing realistic teen dialogue. Here's his picture. This is who they relied on. But we looked him up, and he's done, aside from he wrote Elle, the Paul Verhoeven movie from a couple years ago that was critically acclaimed, but aside from that, it's nothing but direct-to-video garbage, including, and some people might not remember this or know about this, but in the early 2000s, there was like a glut of direct-to-video movies based on real-life serial killers. And this guy that wrote this movie wrote the Dahmer movie, another Milwaukee connection. He wrote the John Wayne Gacy movie. And so it's like, I guess that's his thing. Nothing but garbage, and yet somehow, I don't know how he wrote Elle. I don't know how that fits into all this, but...
It's possible it was a database mistake.
That's true.
Same exact name.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a part where Wishpond Girl comes over, and the younger sister of her friend is like, can I come hang out with you guys? And she goes, easy, Grasshopper. Maybe next time. I'm like, is that a Kung Fu reference? Like the David Carradine show from 1960? Like, no.
Yeah. Teenagers not referencing Kung Fu.
Yeah. No. That's not even...
They're not even referencing Kung Fu, The Adventure Continues.
But yeah, it's painfully obvious.
Well, then there's just general dumb dialogue. Like they talk about how Slender Man, he spreads like a virus, but not like a real virus, like a computer virus. It's like the same thing.
But where
it infects and it spreads. It's the exact same thing.
She goes on to explain that even further. She's like, where it's a computer virus in your hard drive, except for your hard drive is your brain.
That's an actual line, by the way. Except the hard drive is your brain.
I am king. I will help you.
So there was that roly-poly fat kid, and I was like, Slender Man's gonna make him eat candy. Yeah. And then nothing happened.
I was waiting for that, like they're like almost like a Nightmare on Elm Street thing, especially more as the sequels went on. It's like you have your fear. They established that in the beginning of the movie. Freddy exploits that to scare you and eventually kill you.
Ironic deaths.
Yes, ironic deaths. And instead, this movie has nothing.
Yeah, and I'm curious, not that it would help too much, but I would want to know what was cut out. Because this movie, has absolutely nothing in it.
It has a setup, and then nothing happens for the remainder of the film. It sets up Slender Man. The girls are having a little like sleepover party, and they look up Slender Man on the internet. And I guess a video that's posted on the internet makes Slender Man start to haunt them in real life.
All out of The Ring.
But then the rest of the movie is just, there's no like story progression, there's no plot. It's just scene after scene of one of our characters wandering around, and then Slender Man's in the corner.
Well, the first girl goes missing. Then they set up, if you look into Slender Man's eyes, you go crazy. Second girl goes crazy. By
Well,
crazy,
they establish early on, Slender Man will react differently to you depending on who you are. And so that's sort of like a okay, then that means that nothing in the movie, like there's no way to determine where the story's gonna go or what's gonna happen with anybody. It's just whatever.
That's my big point that I always want to get to with horror films is rules. Rules are so important because you have to know what's happening.
You have to know what to be scared of.
That's why Nightmare on Elm Street is such a perfect script and perfect idea, because you know the rules. There's nothing to be scared of if you don't know consequences or rules.
Right.
I've said it a million times.
And well, the movie never feels like it's going anywhere. The thing's like, it's like almost exactly 90 minutes, and it felt like it was 3 hours, and it felt like it could have ended at any time because nothing moved anything forward.
Right. The story elements are, first girl to disappear, she was interested in Slender Man secretly. And so she chatted with someone about Slender Man, she looked at videos. She's the one who gets kidnapped first. Then Wishpond Girl really starts digging into it, because the other two don't really care too much.
I thought Wishbone Girl was supposed to be the lead, and then she's just not.
No. She digs into it and she finds out, oh, you have to give Slender Man an offering of something that you care about. So they bring out, like, one girl brings like a picture of her and her dad, and this a quilt my grandma made when she was dying in the hospital. This is my favorite teddy bear. And then they like rip them up and throw them in the I'm like, that's not what Slender Man's talking about.
Yeah.
It's talking about stabbing your friend 19 times.
They couldn't say that in the movie, though. Yep.
And then the one girl, even though she made an offering, Slender Man shows up in her bedroom and I guess chokes her. And then she looks in the mirror and there's nobody there. Then she's crazy, which makes sense in the cut scene where she stabs herself in the eyeball.
Right.
But then she just disappears.
She's just gone from the movie.
Then main girl,
Who has a little sister.
who has a little sister, her little sister has a panic attack and ends up in the hospital. And I think Slender Man is trying to kill the little sister. I don't know what's happening.
Well, there's a revelation of sorts where Wishpond Girl, we find out that she took her friend's little sister
that's right, I forgot
into the
about
woods, I guess as a sacrifice. They make it very vague. There might have been more that was cut, so it didn't resemble the real life incident. I don't know.
Yeah.
But so then Slender Man has her in his grasp, but I don't know what that means.
It's like they said, well, we need some kind of origin for Slender Man, because we can't just say somebody photoshopped it on the internet. It's a joke. So Wishpond Girl goes to the library.
Oh yeah, she goes to the library to look at the internet.
Library. Yeah, she has to go to the library to use their computer to log on to AOL and do some research.
Yeah.
But she does find a book about the paranormal. Although there is a lot of phones and iPhones and chatting and stuff in this, so that was probably a rewrite by some 18-year-old intern at the studio.
He looked at the script. He's like, "What the fuck is this?"
People can see each other on their phones, like the Jetsons. Yeah, it's called FaceTime. What? What? But anyway, so the point I was making was Wishpond Girl goes to the library, does her research, which says Slender Man is a bioelectric paranormal, interdimensional being, something. There's stories all over the world going back to the Pied Piper of Hamelin, who steal children from this culture to this culture. They all have a creepy monster and lores and histories, mystical legends about creatures that steal children. It's probably all Slender Man. Slender Man's what he looks like now in the 2000s.
And as we learn, he can also be a tree. He's also has some connection to trees.
A creepy creature in there. And then, so it's not like Freddy Krueger was a guy who killed children and got burned alive, so his evil spirit hung around and can kill you in your dreams. It's just like
Got it.
Slender Man's something, and he could just do anything.
Well, that's the
He'd do anything.
That's the ultimate problem with trying to make a Slender Man movie, is that the things that people think are interesting or creepy about Slender Man are how, like, you just see random photos. And it's like, oh, it's a photo. I don't know the context. I don't know the backstory. But there's like a creepy thing in the background. And that works in the context of just like looking up random shit on the internet. When you try and make a narrative story out of that, it loses everything that makes the idea of Slender Man interesting to begin with.
The actual scary story is that two girls in real life got fucked up by the internet so badly they tried to murder their friend.
That's a real life horror story.
That's the real scary story.
Right, but even as far as like creepypasta, not just Slender Man, but all that shit in general, it's the idea that it's just like created on the internet. It's little snippets of things. It's a photo here. It's a short story there, and there is no attempt to put it in the framework of like a conventional narrative feature. It's its own thing.
Yeah. So it might have been to their benefit that they didn't try to over-explain.
No, but they under-explain for the type of movie they're making. Yeah. It doesn't work on any level. That's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, it is a good like challenge to say like, how do you make Slender Man movie? You know. See, I think also the problem too is that this movie was like a flat line in terms of scares and moments, and even like, oh god, it was just so ugly looking.
The very first shots are extreme handheld close-ups of two of the girls sitting on like bleachers,
yes,
talking, and it's like this, and you're like, what am I looking at? Where are they? Yes. Why is it shot like this?
There's numerous extreme close-ups at locations, and part of me is wondering, and like, did they do that to like save money on like extras and locations, you know, that sort of thing?
Could
and I'm
be.
like, why is this movie so claustrophobic? Why is it so ugly? It's so flat looking. I mean, even it just starts, you know. It also just ends. But
Yes,
it just
we'll
starts.
get into that.
And I was like, why isn't there an opening like where there's a little girl like at her family's campsite and she wanders off and, you know, and, she's running and she's screaming and she drops her teddy bear.
Yeah. Or a group of kids sitting around a campfire saying, "Let me tell you about Slender Man."
Yeah, well, sure. This fell. That's crazy. I gotta go off and have a leak. Yeah. And he goes off and smokes a little doobie and then. I mean, I guess you know you're talking kind of goofy horror cliche, but.
Well, it's better than absolutely nothing.
You got to have some kind of spooky opening to start off your film to establish what this creature will do to you.
Or start it completely grounded in reality. Get us where we understand these characters and like them. So when you start introducing the horror, we give a shit.
Well, we're supposed to like them when they have their slumber party and they're talking teenager talk.
Oh.
Do you like Billy? I like Billy. Oh, you spend too much time running track.
My dad drinks, and sometimes I wish I could just go away. Slender Man, Calgon, take me away. They wouldn't know Calgon, take me away. Maybe they would if they know Grasshopper.
The screenwriter knows.
Screenwriter knows Calgon, take me away.
I gotta go take a bath. Calgon, take me away. How do you know about that ad campaign from 1982?
That does it! Calgon, take me away!
Lose your cares in the luxury of a Calgon bath.
There is some random imagery that's actually kind of interesting looking. It feels out of place because it's nothing more than random imagery. Like, it doesn't connect with anything. Like,
You're speaking of the hospital sequence.
yes.
The girl, our lead, I forget her name, her sister's in the hospital, and she keeps having like out-of-body experiences or dreams, waking dreams, something. So that's the thing, was we don't know. She's walking around the hospital, and everyone like kind of looks creepy, and she walks past rooms.
There's like a woman with super long hair, and the orderly's like brushing it, but he has no eyes.
Yes.
It's like Jacob's ladder looking or something.
Yes, lady with a missing face. Something distorts. Neat. Very reminiscent of a scene from Nightmare on Elm Street. But in Nightmare on Elm Street, you know, our character is in a dream. Yeah. Our character has fallen asleep. She is in danger of being killed in real life because when Freddy finds her, he will stab her.
I understand the things that are happening in the story.
I understand what's happening in the story, and I understand the danger this character is in that we like. But in here, it's...
The girl wanders around. Creepy imagery happens because it's a horror movie.
She keeps awake. Nonsense.
It is scene after scene of one of our characters wandering around, and then Slenderman. Not a lot of jump scares, though.
No.
Instead, they replaced it with nothing.
It seemed like everyone was like a zombie.
Yes.
Like they were just like bored and dead inside. And there was one moment that stuck out when Wish Upon Girl goes to the little library. And then the library is like this dark, dingy-looking place, and then she has a Slender Man attack sequence. Mm-hmm. Slender Man's like, yeah, and he's stretching out the bookshelves, and he's like, I'm gonna get you. His Slender Man doesn't talk, but it would be great if he did. and then all of a sudden, like, her face turns into Slender Man's face.
Yeah.
And then, bam, she's knocked back into reality when she hits a book cart, and there's a pre-established librarian lady who was there before the dream sequence or nightmare sequence happened. And she's like, "Are you okay, miss?" And then the girl gets up and she like wanders off and leaves. And then
the scene's over.
And then they show the librarian and she goes, and really, I wanted that, like, you know how in Nightmare on Elm Street, the adults don't ever believe them.
Right.
And they're always just like, oh, you're just having a dream, you're crazy. And so the librarian's just like, oh, just lay off the booze, honey. Go back to class. I really had a scary incident with the Slenderman. Sure you did. Get the fuck out of the library. It's closing soon. You need that. You need those little, like moments where
they make the characters feel almost helpless, and that's what makes you fear for them.
Where the adults don't believe them. Yeah. They go to try to get help. So-and-so was kidnapped by the Slender Man. Here, look at all this evidence. Slender Man, that's just some crazy internet phenomenon. You kids and your chat boards, get out of my office. You need stuff like that. You need humanity.
Yeah.
You need people acting like people. This movie was just like, it's like a flat line. Sucked. And so that's where I blame the director.
Yeah.
Where the director's, if he cared, I mean, you have a script by this old hack, right? And he's like, and the director would say, okay, how about so-and-so does this? How about they have this quirky characteristic? Or how about so-and-so does this or says this? Or this side character in the background does this? I don't know. Give it some life.
Yeah.
What was that? I think this is how we get Katie back.
Well, let's talk about the end of the movie, which is to say the movie just stops.
No, there's a conclusion.
Done now.
There's a conclusion. I didn't know what was happening, but there was a conclusion.
Well,
right?
kind of. I mean, they establish early on you have to sacrifice something you care about to Slender Man. And so early on, they have the photo of the dad or whatever. Apparently, those weren't things they really cared about or didn't care about enough or something. And so the main girl's little sister is now being haunted by Slender Man. Wish Upon Girl gets pulled out of a window by Slender Man, and she's never seen again. Black girlfriend is just vanished from the movie. Boyfriend character shows up in class, and he's got like a bruise on his arm, and he's acting weird. She's like, "What's wrong with you?" And he just kind of goes. And then he's never seen in the movie again. Don't know what that's about.
She told him not to watch the video, but you know
he watched the video, I guess, but there's no conclusion to it. We don't see what happens to him.
Lots of disappearing characters. More disappearing characters than the Avengers Infinity War. Why is it dead silent?
So then the girl realizes that she needs to sacrifice herself to save her sister and save all of her friends. So she goes into the woods and she says, Slender Man, I'm here, take me away. And Slender Man turns into a tree and absorbs her, and then the movie's over. I don't know what happened to the other friends. We don't really know what happens to the sister other than she survives.
Well, she says, Slender Man, take me. And then he's like, okay. And then she runs.
Oh yeah, and then she tries to get away.
And then he takes her forcefully. It would have been a better ending if Slender Man, I guess this would have been tasteless too, but it would have been a better ending if Slender Man had the three other girls kind of held hostage almost.
Well, that's what I was waiting for. And then
Yeah.
she sacrifices herself and her friends are let free.
Or-
They're all back.
Or
he tricks her or something.
Or she takes her little sister into the woods. It's time to hang out with us, because that was set up earlier.
Yeah.
I want to hang out with you girls. Well, you want to hang out with us? Come on. And then
Like a dark ending.
dark.
It is a horror movie.
And Slender Man goes, and then they say, you sacrificed your little sister? Well, it was either her or the three of you. Yeah. Slender Man made a real tough choice because he's a real bad guy. He's what they call a horror movie villain. And he made me do it. And
instead, he's just a tree.
And then they say, was it worth it, girl? Was it worth it? And then she goes like this, and then it cuts to Slender Man. He goes, and then that goes over the credits.
Yeah.
So, and this movie did nothing. It sucked. It was so boring.
It's not a complete movie. That's the thing. Like the stuff that was pulled out of it, the hampering down of anything horrific to get a PG-13. The fact that they pulled out so much of the story, the horrific elements, that it's not even a horror movie anymore. It's just nothing.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing.
Yeah. Just let this whole thing just die. I'm not talking about Slender Man. I'm talking about Sony Pictures. Oh.
Well, you can't spell Sony without N-O.
Do you work for their ad department? You can't spell Sony without Y. I one-upped you, bitch. And credit.
You're going down!
Goodbye, o gozaimasu. Rowdy.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, have I got a story for you? So recently, in these past couple of weeks, I have been dealing with a bunch of mortally distressing respiratory issues that have nothing to do with COVID in the middle of a big pandemic. And man, it has been just a mess. I've been a wreck, but I think I finally got it all figured out and everything's getting back into order. So now it's time to do the post-mortem and tell you guys where I've been, what I've been going through, and the experience of it all, because it is a story. And we're just going to go ahead and do this chronologically because I'm not sure how else to go about this. So let's go back in December. My wife and I had just bought a new home because we've had a child and we're trying to figure out what we want to do next with our lives. As it turns out, renting is really expensive, especially as you need to move up to a larger place to accommodate a family. So the only real option is to buy a house or just flush a lot of money down the toilet and never get any kind of return on it. So we buy this house, and when we first move in, I noticed that I actually am having a lot of asthma-related trouble. I have asthma, and usually it's pet-related. Like, I get around cats, and then I suffocate. So this is something that's been going on since I was a small child. I don't even remember the first time I had an asthma attack. It's been going on for that long. But I've been able to manage it really well. Usually, I just have like a Zyrtec or something every day, and I don't have any kind of asthma trouble. Everything's fine. So when we first move into this house, I'm having this asthma trouble at night. Like I can't lay down, and it's so bad that I actually leave and then go to our old place because the lease isn't quite up yet, and I stay the night there. So the following morning, I go to the store and I buy an air purifier, like a good one, some kind of Honeywell thing, like an expensive one, and probably one that's a bit overkill for most of the rooms in the house. So we tear up the carpets, and I put this Honeywell filter all around the house into every room and let it do its thing for a while until I feel comfortable being in the house. And these carpets are actually pretty old. We find out that the previous residents who own the house had added furniture fixtures that would normally be like nailed to the floor. Like there's a loft, and they had a ladder that goes up to the loft, and they'd nailed this ladder into the ground through the carpet. So we knew that the carpet hadn't been changed in a while, and also that the previous owners had pets. They had cats and dogs, and I'm allergic to the hair of dogs, I think, because we have a little dachshund and she doesn't bother me. She's got short hair. But definitely cats. Any kind of cat always really messes me up. So I know they've had cats. I know the carpets haven't been changed in a long time. I assume there's just tons of pet hair in the carpet. So we roll these carpets up, and we get a truck to, we call my parents. My parents come by with a truck to throw these carpets away. And then we find out that the local dump services have all been bought up by like a single company. And so before the, financial recession, before the housing crash, they were separate companies, and the price to throw stuff away, each load would have been like, I don't know, $30, $40. But now that it's all a monopoly, it's like $100 per load. So we would have to chop up this carpet into a bunch of different loads and then take it all down there and deposit it for several, be several $100s. We're thinking like, $400 or $500 to throw all this carpet away, because we can't really, the truck's not very big, and we can't fill it up. So it turns out, though, that there's a dumpster day in April in the neighborhood, and so we decide that we'll just stow this stuff in the garage for now, and we'll throw it all away in April when the dumpster day rolls around. So fast forward on into March, and things start to warm up, and throughout this time, we've actually had some cold symptoms and some other things that we believe were maybe like nasal infections or something like that, because they've been persisting. My wife was having some issues where she was having a little bit of vertigo, and it was kind of coming and going, and the doctor was having a hard time figuring it out. They'd given her some prescriptions, tried to treat it with antibiotics, and it was a little tricky because she would take these things and it would sort of go away, and then it would kind of come back, and because it was chronic, but mostly just kind of, it was concerning, but mostly just annoying, we sort of wrote it off as, well, maybe she's getting crystals, maybe it's the dust in the house, we didn't do a very good job when we put the floorboards down, or something like that. And we were kind of just trying to figure it out. It hadn't yet occurred to us that maybe there was something more sinister in the air. But by March, things started to warm up. And I've already given it away that we've got this carpet in the garage. So if you haven't already figured out, this was the problem all along. But the air warms up, and then my wife's problems get worse. And then one day, I'm starting to have really bad asthma. And I don't know what's causing it. Normally, asthma doesn't get set off like this for me. I don't tend to have really bad episodes of asthma. And in fact, my asthma is usually so well managed that I actually haven't picked up my albuterol in maybe 10 years. Like, the albuterol is your rescue inhaler. You take it when you're having a big asthma attack, and then you get away from the allergen and you let things calm down. So I haven't picked this thing up in 10 years, and it's a sheer stroke of luck that I still have an active prescription, because my primary care physician noticed during a checkup that I hadn't been getting the thing refilled. And so she just wrote me one for like, well, you should probably have an active prescription, she said, and so I'll just write you one and you can keep it. If you need it, you'll go get it. And then I let that lapse. It expired, and then I went into the pharmacy, and the pharmacist saw that I had let that lapse. And he said, I'll just send a refill request on this. And, this isn't normally typical. You don't see that kind of action necessarily. When a patient isn't filling, you don't really go out of your way normally. But this pharmacist, he was just like, you shouldn't let this lapse. You mind if I just send a refill request, since I see it expired kind of recently? And I was like, well, that's fine. So, anyway, I was having asthma trouble at night, and I went to bed, and the asthma trouble kind of went away. Which is weird, because when you have asthma, any of you out there who have it, you probably are aware that when you lay down, the congestion actually will tend to settle in your lungs, and the asthma will get worse. Laying down is generally not what you want to do to make things better. Normally, you'd want to take your inhaler, sit upright. If you can, walk around a little bit, because it'll help get the stuff out of your system. You'll cough it up. So laying down made it better, which was strange. And I couldn't figure out what exactly the deal was, but I thought, maybe just there was something that I got into or something happened that was exacerbating these symptoms, and then I'd be fine the next morning. But in the next day, in that afternoon, my asthma started to get bad. And then it got really bad. And then it got probably the worst I've ever had it. Like, an asthma attack is like if you've ever seen one of those little coffee stir straws, where they just have those two tiny straws on either side. Imagine trying to breathe through one of those, and that's your only access to oxygen. Do that for a little while, and just let yourself feel the panic that sets in as you're not getting a proper amount of oxygen. And now, that's like an ordinary asthma attack. This is some kind of like super asthma attack. I have never had this bad before. And so I asked Claudia, I'm trying not to panic, and so I call the pharmacy near me, and I ask if they could transfer my prescription and fill my albuterol inhaler there. And so it turns out that they don't have the inhaler in stock in my local place because there's been a bit of a run on medications due to this whole COVID thing. So I call the pharmacy where I used to get my medications back when I lived in another area of town. It's a larger store, and they do have it in stock. So I drive down there to go pick up this med. And the whole way there, it feels like it goes by in a flash because I'm kind of fading in and out. Like I'm not getting enough oxygen, and you're getting this sort of spiraling blackening sense, like the walls are closing in. And I'm just trying to stay relaxed because getting too excited can make these symptoms worse. And again, I've never had asthma this bad, so I'm hoping I'll get the inhaler, I'll take it, and I'll feel better. So I get to the store, and I'm just waiting patiently for them to fill my meds. Trying not to panic, not really sure what to do, knowing that with this whole respiratory pandemic going on, that if I show any symptoms of asthma, everyone's gonna think I have COVID. I don't want anyone to think that I'm having a COVID attack. It's some sort of asthma thing. There's a huge difference. So I get the prescription, and I take a puff of the albuterol. Nothing happens. And again, if you've got asthma, imagine you take your albuterol inhaler and it doesn't help. And you're in the middle of the worst asthma attack in your life. And so I don't know what to make of this. I take another hit of it. Still no good. I try a third hit. I'm still suffering from it. And so Claudia was shopping a little bit because while we're there, we may as well pick stuff up. There's been shortages of things, and this is a bigger store, so they actually had a little bit more stuff. So she comes out, and I tell her, I think I need to go to the hospital. Like, the albuterol's not working. So I get to the hospital, and they take me in, and I'm not admitted or anything like that. They just take me in, and apparently what they write down as my symptoms is cough. And I find this out later when a nurse looks at the computer, and she says, "Oh, you're just in here for a cough," and she kind of scoffs at me. And so they don't do anything for me. They just sit me in this bed, and after about an hour, the symptoms kind of go down. And I'm feeling a little bit better. And so they give me a spacer, and they're like, maybe you just took your albuterol. You took your inhaler wrong. And they don't really speculate on it or anything like that. I think at this point they're seeing a lot of people coming into the hospital who are worried they have COVID. And they think that I'm just one of these worry warts. I came in because I'm one of these people. So I feel a little embarrassed and a little stupid. It felt life-threatening, but when you get that kind of reaction from the doctor where they just write down cough and then they sort of laugh it off and they don't do anything for you, you feel pretty dumb, and you know that they probably charged you $500 for that because this is America and this is how it goes. So I go home and, I don't know what to make of it. And by this point it's late and I wind up going to bed and I feel fine at night. Again, which is weird. Because when I'm having asthma trouble, usually, again, laying down is when it gets to be at its worst. And I can't figure this out. Why am I having this asthma attack where I'm fine if I lay down, like I can sleep? I can usually never sleep in an asthma-related environment. If there were a cat in the house, I would have to get out of there. I couldn't lay down. It would be terrible. So it's baffling to me. I don't get it. And I wake up, and I go about my routine for a while, and then in the afternoon again, I have another asthma attack, but this time my throat starts to swell up. And I've never had an anaphylactic attack before in all my life. This is terrifying. Like, man, not only are you like breathing through one of these tiny straws, but now I can feel my throat's closing. And I don't know what to do. So I asked Claudia just to take me to the hospital, and she says, "Which one? Do you want to go to the one we went to last time?" And I said, "The nearest one. Just wherever is nearest. Just take me down to the hospital right now. I am concerned I'm going to die. Like, this could go any minute. I don't know how long it'll take." So we get in the car, And we start driving down to the hospital. The hospital's about 7 minutes away from me, but it takes about 15 minutes to get there, because what's going on is there's this big parade of cars for people who are sad that their kids got pulled out of school, and so they're driving through the neighborhood to say hi to all the teachers. And so we wind up stuck in traffic. There's like a stop sign and we have right of way, but the car ahead of us is charmed by this parade, so instead of taking the right of way and driving forward, he's letting the parade pass him. So we're just sitting there watching this parade of cars, and eventually he gets bored and he moves on. And fortunately, by the time we get there, I'm starting to feel like the throat swelling is passing. I'm still having the asthma. I'm still suffering and everything like that. But they take me in. I sit down in the bed and they ask me what's going on. And the previous night, what I had done, and also that afternoon, is I'd taken some fluticasone because my nose was also swelled up, and I was trying to treat that swelling in my nasal cavity. Again, I had actually thought this was somehow related to a sinus infection. So I get in and I tell them, they say, well, have you taken any new drugs or anything recently? Why would you get this throat swelling? And I said, well, I tried some fluticasone this morning and last night. And even when I said it, I thought the timeline didn't really add up, because I'd taken the fluticasone, several hours before my throat swelled up. I'd taken